one of the things that the government wants to do is UBI, Universal Basic Income. And many people through the last 12, 15, 18 months thought that these stimulus payments was a testing ground. You know what? Let's give $1,200. Let's give $600. Let's give $1,400 checks. All in all, if you were in the top bracket for stimulus payments, you basically got $3,200 in 3 separate installments over the last 12, 15 months. Now, the problem with this, from people who are critics of universal basic income, is that if you guarantee someone that you are going to give them free money, you do not have to have a job, you do not have to work, you do not have to do anything productive, you simply can get a check from the government every single month, they're not incentivized to go get a job. Duh, right? If you don't incentivize people to go to work, then they're not going to go to work. Like, it's not hard to figure that out. Incentives drive the world. Now, what we've seen is during the period where there were stimulus checks, where there was boosters for unemployment, and there was generally increased government support, whether that was through eviction moratoriums, student loan lack of payments, etc., people did not want to go to work. And so what ended up happening was companies had to keep increasing the amount of pay. So you could argue that the outcome of companies paying employees more ended up being good. But what companies then did was they turned around and they took the higher cost of labor, the higher cost of the actual materials for their products and services, and they passed it on to the customer and they increased prices. What ended up occurring is, while the government handed out free money to the tune of $3,200 per person in some cases, those people are worse off today than they were before. Their hourly job actually pays them less in purchasing power terms than it did before. The cost of living, based on the official CPI numbers, which we know to be inaccurate, increased the cost of living by 5.4%. It is nuts how this has happened. There is a new bill that is proposed in Congress that would send monthly payments, or the new terminology, guaranteed income, of up to $1,200 for adults and $600 for children, following a pilot program across the United States. It was proposed on Friday. It's known as the Sending Unconditional Payments to People Overcoming Resistance to Triumph, which is a crazy name. It's called the Support Act. And the plan is, quote, designed to build a 21st century economy that is reflective of Americans' everyday needs.
They definitely went back and wrote that name after thinking of the acronym support, right?
Of course. By the way, I also pride myself on being able to take complex ideas and turn them into simplistic language. The Sending Unconditional Payments to People Overcoming Resistances to Triumph can be translated to socialism. That's what this is. It is people depending on their government to give them free money for nothing. And when you turn a capitalistic, upstart, hungry, innovative, economic prosperity-driven country into a socialistic society where people are dependent on the government, we do not have a single example anywhere in the world where that has proven to be a sustainable strategy. And so the idea here of this new bill is that it would begin with a $2.5 billion grant that would be used in pilot programs across the U.S. to be studied from 2023 to 2027. Why $2.5 billion? Nobody knows. Why do we have to wait till 2023 to start? Nobody knows. Why would we only study it for 4 years? Nobody knows. But after reviewing the findings and best practices, the government could then implement the program in 2028. Don't worry, folks. Hold on. The government's coming to save you in 7 years. This would establish an Office of Guaranteed Income Programs, and the Treasury Department would oversee the payments. There have been dozens of pilot programs that have been approved in various places already, but critics of the program say it would disincentivize work. Is there any possibility that the United States moves to a universal basic income model?
Well, I wouldn't put it out of the question depending on who's in government, but we already saw those same effects that you just mentioned, the downside of disincentivizing people to work. We literally just saw it play out with unemployment benefits. When you raise that rate of unemployment benefits to higher than people were receiving at their current job, it disincentivizes them to go back to work. Why would you go back to work if you're making more money from the government than you were making previously? Right. So just from an incentive standpoint, it doesn't make much sense. And then you just start thinking about people thinking that the government is going to come save them, right? How you mentioned. And that's just not how the United States was built into the economic power that we are. You have to incentivize people to go to work, to innovate, to create jobs and expand their businesses. And universal basic income does not do that here within the United States.
One of the pieces of this that is underrated, in my opinion, is this is going to happen. We absolutely are going to get universal basic income in this country. I don't like it. I don't think we should do it, but we're going to get there. Why? Because you know what the greatest political campaign in the world is to people who constantly feel like they can't get ahead? Don't worry. I'll just give you free money.
Yeah.
The people who are shepherding and encouraging and advocating for this type of program are the exact same people who are going to go to those that are in the most dire need financially. And that's their pitch. I'll give you free money. Vote for me. You know what it's equivalent to? Remember in high school or middle school when there was the student body president vote and they walked around and they gave candy to everyone and it was a popularity contest? That's what this is.
Because they don't know the other impact of it. They don't understand what it does to them, right? When you look at it from an inflation standpoint and giving people free money, not only from an incentive perspective of going to get a job, but from what it actually does to the monetary policy in the country, right? And it ruins basically it widens the inequality gap. It does all these things that they don't necessarily think about. They're really just thinking about, hey, I'm getting free money. Why wouldn't I take that?
Going back to how I started off the show of I don't adhere to any political party or any one issue or anything. I actually think it's a good thing in the United States that we have some forms of help for people who need some portion of help, right? So unemployment as an example. If you have a family, you get laid off from your job, you have no other option, it's a good idea that the government can help you for a period of time. We're the greatest country in the world. We literally are the greatest country in the world. We are more powerful than any country that's ever come before us. We should be able to help people. But 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Nuts. And so instead of those types of programs, what we are now talking about is literally having a persistent program. It doesn't matter what happens. You simply will get your check. And what I think is the most dangerous part about this is that the government is essentially bribing the people. You're giving people $1,200 every month to shut up, own nothing, and be happy. That's it. That is what they're doing. And we see 45% of Americans hold no investable assets. It's crazy. And those 45% of Americans are worse off today than they were last year because of the devaluation of the currency. And so where are we going to get billions and billions, if not tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, right? What would it be? How many US adults are there times $1,200? See what that math is. Google how many US adults we have. And then what would it be if we gave each one of them $1,200? We had Ken Langone, a multi-billionaire on television last week or 2 weeks ago, saying to Elizabeth Warren, why are you sending me Social Security? A multi-billionaire is receiving Social Security checks. It's bonkers to me that these programs are set up the way that they're set up. And if we continue to simply give free money, you will not only hurt the people you're giving the money to, you will not only hurt the people who don't receive any of the money, but you also will go further and further and further into a federal debt situation that cannot be corrected.
$250.8 billion.
$250 billion per year.
$1,200 per month times 210 million 18 adults, 18 and over.
And then children could get $600. So over $250 billion a year this program would cost. And we can't figure out where to pay for anything. Remember the Ted Cruz quote, literally. We're talking about legislating things we don't understand with money we don't have to pay for things we can't afford. Exact same thing here. And so what I think is probably the craziest part of this entire idea is that we just talked about how the free market actually was able to increase wages faster than the government has been able to increase the federal minimum wage. My guess is if the United States government and the politicians looked at this and said, we cannot use legislation as the tool in our toolbox to affect change. Instead, we are here as servants of the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, and the citizens of our districts, our states, and our country. And we're going to do everything we possibly can do to empower them to solve their problems and then get the hell out of the way. We would already be in a better position. There would be much less poverty in this country. People would be in a better financial position. And it would start because we would take the 45% of Americans who hold no investable assets and we would teach them financial education. You can't tell me that a country that is thinking about mandating universal basic income, but refuses to mandate personal income in every single school in the country has its priorities right. Because the old adage of you can fish for someone, but you're better off teaching them how to fish is true here as well. How do you solve the problem? By simply handing somebody money instead of teaching them how to thrive on their own.
Well, and the other thing too is the $250 billion, that's, you're quoting it per year. Some of them want to give $1,200 per month, and that's $3 trillion a year.
Wait, the $250 billion was only a one-time payment of $1,200?
Yeah. So if you look at it on a per month, multiply that by 12
million people.
Yeah, multiply that by 12, and it's $3 trillion a year if you gave every U.S. American adult $1,200 a month, which is what they're planning on trying to do.
That's all the money we got.
But let's be clear, like that would be more than a 10% increase to the federal deficit as where it stands today every year. $3 trillion a year to hand money and pay people so they don't have to work. The old ideals of hard work, etc., are not dead in this country. We spend episode after episode after episode here talking about people who are immigrants, people who come from nothing, people who literally are able to take a skill that they developed and build a life of financial security and wealth. 80% of millionaires in the United States inherited $0. 33% of millionaires in the United States never made more than $100,000 in any given year. Anyone can do it in this country. But what we have to do is we have to get back to teaching people financial education. We have to get back to creating the aspirational nature of come to America and you can do it too. Because when we go from a entrepreneurship driven, a capitalistic society where you get value if you create value, and we turn to a government that has zero clue what they're doing, as we've seen over the last couple of days with the infrastructure bill, the US government is not likely to manage this correctly. And the US government is in more debt than they've ever been, yet they continue to collect more tax revenue than they've ever collected. We don't have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem. And if you understand business, even at the most simplistic form, if you keep increasing your revenue, but you keep going further and further in debt, you should stop spending. You should actually run a budget that is balanced. And one of the best things you can do as a country is serve as an example for the people of which you represent. Because my guess is if you had $3.5 trillion, which, by the way, is the new bill that today the Democratic Party put forward that is supposed to address poverty and climate. But my guess is that less than 20% of it will actually go to any of those causes. You would be better off taking that money, handing it directly to people, teaching them how financial education works, and telling them we will never give you another dollar. Here is it getting you back to the starting line. Here is what you need to know. Go forth and be prosperous. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching that clip of the Best Business Show. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you know when we go live every weekday, and then head to SoFi.com/pomp so that you can get an account and we can get after it.